Afternoon. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a city commission workshop, January 23rd, 2025 at 4 p.m. We're going to start with the invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance, both led by Commissioner Davis.
Heavenly Father, God, we just thank you for this day. God, we ask that as we begin this commissioner workshop, God, that you be with us, that you guide us, God, that you open our minds and our hearts to learn so that we can be better commissioners for our city. We thank you for the warmth and the comfort from the cold air. And Lord, we pray for those who unfortunately may not be as comfortable as we are. We thank you and we praise you and we ask these and all blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Davis,
Present.
Commissioner Borum. Mayor Correa,
Present.
Commissioner Jones,
Here.
Commissioner Campbell.
Present.
Thank you. Moving on to public recognition and the actual presentation. And are we going to start with you introducing
Yes, of course.
Ms. Cotty?
Of course, I will. First of all, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. And I'll guess that Dr. Judge had Daniels, I appreciate you being here. And she is here in response, Dumont. She's here in response to Commissioners' requests to gain better guidance on roles and interaction with staff. So you can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Marcia. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Okay, thank you. Oh, now it's on. Thank you very much, Marcia. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, and everyone who's here for showing up, even on Zoom. I can't see anyone on Zoom, but that's fine. I know you're there. I can feel your presence. My name is, I've been asked to discuss staff, council relations and roles, and I'm going to put that into a larger picture as well to really give it a lot more context. So the title of this workshop is Collaborative Governance, Understanding Commission and Staff Roles. Can you go to the next? Thank you. Just Associate Professor at UNF. I'm also the Masters of Public Administration Director there. So I, for the MPA program, for those that don't know, there's an MPA and an MBA. Everybody knows what an MBA. An MBA is maximizing profit and shareholder value, and MPA is maximizing public value. So I'm training students who are going into the public and nonprofit sectors to be as efficient, effective, and economic as possible. So that's a little bit about me. And then I also do consulting. I volunteer a lot in the community. I've been on boards, task forces, commissions, councils, and I am a former elected official. So I was on the city council in Jacksonville Beach. I just ended my mayoral campaign. I lost, but it was close. It was a good race, and the council is paying attention to what I wanted to have things pay attention to. So it was a success. And not winning lets me be here with you guys tonight, because when I hold public office, I can't consult. So, yay. Just want to go over the agenda real quick. Thank you. First, I want to go into the different structures of government. I'm going to go through some of these quick, and I'm going to dive much deeper into the nuts and bolts of it. So the structure, and then sunshine in Florida, not the sunshine of the sky type, but of the legal type. Roles and responsibilities is where we're going to spend a lot of time. So this is the roles and the responsibility of elected officials, appointed officials, and staff, and then meetings. So different types of meetings, what to be looking for in these meetings, and then any questions. As we go through each section, please feel free to let me know if you need clarification or if you have questions. You don't have to wait all the way to the end. And I have each one of these broken out into different sections. So you'll see that there's a nice little, there should be, I hope you see that there's a nice little structure to it. Speaking of structure, let's go into structure. So in this section, we're going to cover the forms of government, volunteer boards, and then commissioner relations to other governments before we get into staff. Next. So local government. So when you think of, you all know what your city charter is. I read it. And so the city charter, you can always think of that as like the constitution for a county or a city. So in Florida, we have 67 counties, 40 of which have charters and the others don't. There are 4 counties that do have an coordinator, but there's a difference there. And I'm not going to get into that since you're a municipal government, but you do need to engage with your county. So in those charters, in the City of Palatka charter. I'm Georgette. Oh, wait, Matt.
Somewhere.
League of Cities. Yes, back when I was on council. Your face. So when we're looking at charters, the charter gives you the form of structure of the government. So here you're a commission manager form. And in this one, in yours, you are the boss. You hire and fire the city manager. And I want you to think about that as well, because you are entrusting that whomever is in the role of city manager is implementing what you are asking them to implement to the fullest extent. And so that way there's no need for you to kind of do the nitty gritty calling the police chief needing this and all that. So we'll get into that again in a little bit more, but that is the type of government that you have. When we look at councils versus commissions at the county level, they're all commissions. At the municipal level, some of them are commissions, some of them are counties. There's no difference other than what they're called in the charter. So, but there are differences in form. So if you are looking at a pure commission form of government, and I believe there are 4 or 7 counties in Florida that have more of a pure commission form of county government. That's where each commissioner is in charge, is a head of a department. So there's no the elected officials act as the administrator as well. Those across the country are on their way out. Things are getting a lot more complicated. And because of that, they're realizing they need somebody with the appropriate professional skills to be able to hold those positions. So these pure commissions have really mainly rolled into the last one, the commissioner manager, but there are some differences. Weak mayor, we don't really have many of those. Those are, so there are some municipalities that have a commission weak mayor where the mayor actually doesn't vote, but they do break ties, things like that. Strong mayor commission, those are predominantly in large municipalities. And that is where you have, just like the federal government and the state, there's the distinction between the mayor as the executive, the legislature as the council as the legislative branch. One holds the purse strings and the other one holds the purse strings, passes the laws, and the other one implements. Go back one more. Commission manager, this is you guys. So in the commission manager, the commission hires the city manager and oversees the city manager. The city manager implements what you are asking them to implement. In the charter, it will also note whom else the city council or commission, whatever you want to call it, who else they hire. So often you'll see that the city commission hires the city manager, the city attorney, and sometimes the city clerk. And then there's always with advice, but you don't really worry about that. But always remember, the ones that you are hiring are the ones that you have the oversight over, and you entrust them to implement what you're doing into the staff. Next. Another group is also here to help you guys get everything done, and that's your volunteer boards. So these are the the workhorses of city government. They don't get paid, they're not compensated. You select them and they have to be trained, but they really, they spend their time predominantly because they care about the community and the future of the community. These are your volunteer boards, your CRA, your Historical Preservation Board, Planning Board, Zoning Board, not planning boards, board. The planning people are not boards, they're the board. Those are all volunteer. You appoint all of those, and you want to make sure that you are appointing people with the proper knowledge, skills, and abilities to be able to fully achieve the roles and the expectations. And then you have the Palatka Gas Authority. That one is compensated at a level that you choose. And so they're not volunteer, but they are still a very important board. Next. And then there's intergovernmental relations. So, and this is where things get a little bit wild and you have to kind of work together. So when we're looking at the intergovernmental relations, politically, policy-wise, direction-wise, you want to be working with the Putnam County of Commissioners. So you know who they are. You want to meet with them. None of you can meet as a group unless it's publicly noticed. So you can meet with them one-on-one and discuss it one-on-one, what your issues are and what you need from them. Similarly, you have the Putnam County Legislative Delegation. They're the ones, when you have issues from Tallahassee, they will help push legislation in Tallahassee that you are asking them to do. And they will be very honest with you of things that are just not doable, and then some things that are doable. And these delegations work very well because they're across the state, and they know what the issues are in their areas. And so it's not usually like you're going to have Miami hold up something that is being pushed by the Putnam County delegation or the Duval delegation. So it's kind of like we're all in this together. We understand what the local issues are. Let's get this passed through the legislature. This is extremely important because when you look at Putnam County, again, we'll go to the chartered, not chartered. Putnam County is not chartered. And that means that they have a lot of restrictions on what they are able to do, and they rely on the state legislature to be able to make a lot of those changes. So you want to, if you are butting your head up against something and it's county related, find out, is it the county or is it the state? It's most likely something that the state has not allowed the county to do. High level, if you have a charter, you have home rule. In 1967, the Florida legislature passed a new constitution, and in that they granted home rule. And home rules lets municipalities in any chartered county do anything that is not explicitly prohibited by the state. If you are not chartered, you can only do things that are explicitly says that you are supposed to do by the state. So when you as elected officials are looking at what the needs of your constituents are and who you need to engage and what some of the roadblocks are to move the issue forward, think about the non-chartered county, where the role of the legislature is, the role of the county commissioners, and then how you can leverage the Putnam County legislative delegation to be able to help move things forward. Does that make sense? Okay. And then there's constitutional officers. Every county has to have these. They're mandated by the state. There are some instances that they're not called this, but if a county, non-chartered counties have to have all of these. A chartered county has to have somebody doing these functions, even if it's not called that. So there's no sheriff in Miami-Dade, but there is a person who's in charge of the prisons and law enforcement. So all counties have a tax collector, supervisor of elections, clerk of courts, property appraiser, and a sheriff or somebody in those functions. So they are all elected. They are all there to help you do your jobs as well. You want to make sure that you have good relations with them, because especially you got to know your tax collector, because you get a lot of complaints about taxes. You're going to get them about property appraiser. Well, why my appraisal go up? I know there's a 3%. Well, get to know the property appraiser. So this way, if they have a question and you reach out, they know who you are and they know what some of the issues are. So don't wait for an issue to come up.
reach out to them proactively, get to know them, what some of the issues are that they're seeing and how they relate to Palatka. Okay, any questions on structure? Okay. So. All right, and so I want to briefly cover sunshine laws. This does not count your 4 hours of training. I just want to make sure you know that. But because of sunshine laws, how you interact with each other really is impacted, as well as what people can see how you interact with your constituents and other things. So an overview of purpose, I'm going to touch on some ethics and then the application to all of you. Okay. All right. So sunshine laws. We like to do business in the sunshine in Florida. So Florida is the state that was known for making sure that government is transparent. And the whole purpose is people should know what their elected officials are doing and why they're doing it. So if you are voting a certain way, because of sunshine laws, they should know if you have had an in-depth conversation with the developer or something like that, because you need to disclose that. And we'll get into that in the meetings. So public business needs to be transparent and for the public to know what the decision-making process is. And the key here is public trust. Any elected office really is an office where the public has entrusted you to speak for them. And you don't want the citizens to no longer trust government. That would be bad, 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 bad. Okay. Personal conduct. So I put ethics here. So there's a lot of ethics law. That's why you have a 4-hour training that is mandated by states annually. But generally speaking, when you look at ethics and personal conduct, the citizens, your voters, your constituents, want to make sure that you are independent and impartial to what it is that you are voting on. So you have the opportunity to say why you're for or against something. That quasi-judicial, we're gonna put quasi-judicial on a shelf until we get to meetings, because those are, you're welcome. I also spent 6 or 8 years on the planning commission, so I know quasi-judicial. So you want to make sure that people see you as being impartial and independent. You're not being swayed by one group or another, but you're really looking at it as what is best for the community. You cannot have any private gain, personal gain. You can't make money off of what you do for the city. Misuse of position says, like, you get pulled over, you can't say, do you know who I am? Don't ever, ever, ever say that, because that is like, it's bad. If you're even thinking it, that's still bad because you're not remembering this slide. So no private gain. If you have a business, that business cannot be conducting business with the city. There are some instances, but you'd have to recuse yourself. This is where you really rely on your legal counsel, but you want to make sure that there are no conflicts of interest. And when you think about conflict of interest, think about the perception of a conflict. So if the citizens are looking at you and you're like, no, I've checked all the boxes. They don't know those boxes, but it looks shady and they don't want to see shady stuff. No gifts. So if somebody wasn't going to give you a gift before an item was before you to be voted on, they probably wouldn't give you one in 5 years, don't take that gift. Go get one yourself. So don't accept gifts at all. You know what it is? It's because it's so cold outside. You're like, heat. All right. So when we're looking at that ethics and personal conduct, you just want to really make sure that you are putting yourself in the shoes of the voter, of the citizens, and think about how what you're saying and what you're doing is perceived by the general public. Then there's the good old, the adage that if it's something that you don't want your mom to know, or you don't want something on the front page of the paper, you probably shouldn't be doing it. So when you're thinking about engaging with someone or having a deep conversation, or you're voting and you're like, well, I wouldn't want them to know about this, but it's okay because nobody's going to know. Always assume it's going to be in the paper. If anybody reads the paper anymore, always assume it's going to end up on Facebook. It's going to end up in everybody's email boxes. So assume that before making some of those decisions. Next.
Questions?
Gift wise, there are things,
Oh.
is that somebody want, I stepped up. Gift wise that I don't think you think of as a gift. For example, there's an event put on by a private person entity and they offer free admission to the VIP event.
Mhm.
People need to realize that is a gift.
Yes.
And that just say no.
You can say no.
And just say, I'll buy it myself, I'll buy
Right.
it yourself and have the proof that you purchased the ticket yourself. But in any case, yes.
There is
Thank
like,
you.
there is a level of gift. I think it's $50.
50, but that's not
And
exceeding.
you can sign up, we have to fill out the form, but still there's
It's
the
just easier to say
perception.
no. It's just easier to say no. No, thank you. I appreciate it, but no, thank you.
Exactly.
Okay,
Somebody
I
online?
think, yes.
Question.
yes.
Question. So you mentioned commissioner, how deep and what's covered under conflict of interest as you was on that topic? So could you elaborate on that? Because conflict of interest seems to be a gray area that a lot of people don't understand. So you mentioned about commissioner vote. What about actions with administrative or directors? I know you say recruit yourself, but how deep does that go? And since no one else other than the city manager answers to the commission, how do you deal with that?
Okay, we'll cover this a bit when we get to meetings. So this is going to be in the workshop meetings, not the official type meetings. But with regard to conflicts of interest with staff, directors and staff, that should be picked up in the procurement process. But if it is not, that would still end up being something that is brought to the city manager's attention. If there's a perceived conflict of interest, then the city manager would have to look into that more. Again, it is the city manager's role to run the city, and the commission entrusts that that individual will do a good job in maintaining and improving the public trust. Does that answer? Okay,
Well-
so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I think,
I did answer your question?
no, you didn't. So when I say that, there are, when you start talking about the conflict of interest and you say personal gains and things of that nature. So usually a commissioner not dealing with day-to-day operations. So dealing with a vendor or others on the outside, commissioners usually don't have that contact or
Right.
that the dealings with making contracts work. We approve them. Okay. So on the level of when you're in the meat and potatoes of structuring a contract or deal, that's really where some conflict of interest can happen, and personal gains could also happen. And I'm saying could. So how do you, because people are quick to say something about sunshine, but never elaborate on those type of conflicts of interest. And to be honest with you, that's more than the city manager would be on top of on a day-to-day operations too, because it could happen at a lower level than the city manager. So with the commission not having any supervisory role over anyone other than the city manager, how do you kind of like deal with that? What do you suggest?
You leave it to the city manager, you bring it to the city manager's attention that a citizen, a concerned person has brought this to your attention. You want the city manager to look into it deeper. So there are administrative policies and then there are elected policies. Sunshine only applies to elected and appointed officials. It does not apply to staff members.
We're not talking about sunshine. I'm talking
Right.
about conflict of interest.
Right, and so, because you mentioned sunshine, I want to make sure that you know that they're two separate pieces. When we're looking at conflict of interest, internal policies within a city, remember, a city is nothing, I don't want to say it's nothing more, it is more, but a city is an organization. It's a complex organization, but it is an organization. And just like you have employee rules in your place of business, you have employee rules and codes of conduct. And staff is subject to ethics. That applies to them. Now, the commission is not engaged in that. That is the city manager's job to make sure that legally, ethically, morally, staff is doing what they are supposed to do. That is not the role of the commission. The commission's role is the big picture, the policy direction you want this city to go in.
You go.
Understanding the role and understanding everything you just said, the it's almost I wish I was really there. I understand that in the role. My question or my statement basically is this again. Well, let me just add a different twist to it. So a citizen comes to a meeting. Now it's not directed to the city manager. It's actually now transparently to everyone. We all know the same information. They come into the city commission meeting and advise. So still same direction. I suppose it goes to the city manager to fact find at that point. Okay. So I'm not trying to pry, but I just wanted to pretty much just say where's the difference of conflict of interest from a commissioner standpoint versus a manager, director, or even an employee. Employees can have it because we have employees that turn on and off utilities. So conflicts could happen all through. So I guess the bigger question is, when would a disclosure be appropriate?
For staff,
Yes.
that any disclosure would be done by staff to staff. So to their immediate supervisor or to the director of the organization. It does not go to the commission because that is the nitty gritty of running the city. Now, if you are continually getting these issues, somebody's always coming to the commission meeting saying, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on, and you do not see that the city manager is addressing this and making sure that the staff is acting ethically, well, that is grounds for dismissal. And that is your role. You are overseeing the function of the city manager. You have to let the city manager do his or her job, because once the city commission starts getting involved with the department and the staff, the staff members now are getting two different directions, and they don't know who to answer to. And they should always be answering to the city manager. And whenever a city commissioner reaches out to a staff member, the city manager needs to be informed of that. Even if it's something like you have a question about setbacks in your neighborhood. And so the commissioner you have set questions, one of your constituents has a question about setbacks, and you contact the planning commission, and they tell you about the setbacks. Well, that planning commission director or that planning department should go up to the city manager that, yeah, they were asking about setbacks, because now if everybody's asking about setbacks, maybe there needs to be a workshop on the LDC and setbacks to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Did you have okay.
No further.
Thank you.
Best practices for doing business with the city versus doing business in the city.
Can you give me an example?
Yes. So if I own a company
Mhm.
and I'm gonna build a house, for example, or I'm in a real estate deal. I'm building the house in the city of Palatka, So that's what I consider doing business in Palatka versus a contract with, a business with the city.
Okay, you would do it just like anybody else, but you would not ask for special treatment. And again, go back to that perception. So when I was on city council, I had to go over lot coverage and I wanted to put in a patio in my backyard. It is a beautiful patio now. Pervious pavers and everything else, 15 by 35, lovely, lovely, lovely. I waited until I was off council though, to even submit the application because I was in charge of appointing the people who volunteer on the Board of Adjustments. That's what we call our variance board. And so I didn't want there to be a perceived conflict. Now, there is no legal requirement that I had to wait. And there were other other council members that I was with. They're like, no, I need to extend my driveway and I'm going to go in front of them. And I'm like, well, you can, I won't. And that's where you start you're in the morals type things. There are things that are ethical. There are things that are legal, and not all things that are ethical, legal, and vice versa. So it really then comes into your own ethics. Is this something that you think is right? What would you think if an elected official it appoints the board and then you're asking for this big patio? And they go, then are they really going to say no to the elected official? Some would say, well, they should if they think doesn't work. But again, it's that perception. Yeah. Yes, you do. Right. And again, you want to put yourself in that other person's shoes. Mary, did you have a question earlier? Did that answered? So you can't ask for special treatment.
It did. And I think to take it further, if there's the perception of it, addressing it, do we address it before the public comes to ask that I think that's the point. It's not illegal, so someone
Right.
could do it.
Right.
And then there is the perception, then what from a best practice perspective? I think that's where I'm going with
It's
it.
always better to err on letting the public know. You want to be in front of any issue. The worst thing is that you are then trying to explain yourself, because then the message has been lost. You will never regain or reframe that message. So you want to get out in front of it. You're saying, this is an emergency. I can't wait till I'm off commission. My mother-in-law has to move in. Yay, me. And we need to have we need to put an addition onto the house. And because of that, we're going to go over lot coverage or something like that. And so because of these extenuating circumstances, I need to submit an application to the Board of Adjustment. And so explain it first of all, but then say, and if anyone here, if any of the public thinks that I really shouldn't, have them come and note their dissatisfaction with that decision. Okay, yeah, didn't have your question. Okay. All right, so yeah, we're at the ethics. And all of this is under, so if you look at that bottom piece, collaborative governance, this is the section that we're in, the sunshine laws. So the application, these are the rules to follow. So when we're looking at sunshine, again, this is only for elected and appointed officials. No two individuals from the same body can discuss anything that has, will, or may come before you for a vote. You can talk to individual members of the planning or the zoning, but you can't speak to two of them because now they're breaking sunshine. Things you have to do, you have to file your annual financial disclosures. It is currently on pause. The Form 6, waiting for courts to decide, but you still have the lesser financial disclosures that must be filed every year. Annual ethics trainings, you have to do 4 hours. There's 2 hours on the laws, and then there's one on ethics, and then public records. So you need to do that. So if you go to the Florida League of Cities, there's a space there if you register early enough, because they do run out of spaces every once in a while to get that done. Just check it off the box. Again, it applies to members of the same body. I can't say this enough, public perception. So you're not talking about anything that you voted on. You might be talking about the kids' baseball game, but you and a couple council members are out at the bar one night. The citizens are at that bar going, Wonder what they're talking about.
All right.
And just by chance, the next day, so that was a Wednesday night, the next day you have a meeting and you all vote on a controversial thing in the same way. It doesn't look good. Now, were you speaking about it? No. Was sunshine broken? No. But again, there's that public perception that they think that you're all behind the scenes, making the moves, doing all that stuff. And finally, this applies to social media. So we talk about face-to-face, never hit reply all to your emails. Don't do it, because now you are now communicating with each other. Even if it was to the city manager, hit reply all. I'm sure you BCC. So you don't want to hit reply all on social media. You have a Facebook account or something like that. Somebody asks you a question, you answer, somebody else likes it. That is a public record, and that is you broke the sunshine, because now you're seeing two commissioners on a topic that they're going to be voting on in the same medium. You can't do that. So the best rule of thumb: don't post about the baseball games, about the mother-in-law having to move in, not about the need for the thing, but about the mother-in-law having to move in, the weather, snowflakes, things like that. Don't post about city business, even on your official. If you have an official Facebook page, don't have it as an information gathering, as an information push out. This event is coming downtown, the Crab Festival, here it is. You don't use it as a way to engage with people, because it can get kind of hairy. If you do start, if somebody Facebook messages you, or I don't even know what in X, there's a way that they can contact you out of X. You have to email those to your official email. That is all public record. Oh gosh, there's a whole bunch of things with technologies. Texting. Somebody texts you. You take screenshots of those texts and you email them to yourself. Has to be public record. Again, it's to make sure that there's trust and people can see what has influenced the decisions that you're making when you are voting. Yeah, I believe that's. Can you think of?
Just add that city business on personal.
Right. And so that's why, and most cities don't have like your personal phone, your city phone. Oh, you do? Oh.
Excuse me, excuse me. I'm not sure what the question was that was just asked. I can tell someone that was speaking, but their mic was not on, so we didn't hear it on Zoom.
My
Okay.
apologies, Commissioner Campbell. It was a question from me, just a reminder that all of this applies to your personal phone if you are conducting city business on your personal phone.
All right. So apparently you all have a public phone, a city phone, and a personal phone. We never had that. We had Ring Central for our private phones. But yes, any text that anybody is sending you regarding anything with city business, send it to your email account to make sure that it's captured in the public record.
I mean, that's what I typically do. If I get anything on my personal, and I ask people, do not send anything to
Mhm.
my personal email address. I always give them my city contact information, email and phone number.
Right.
And so I've got a pretty good track record with that.
Good.
Good stuff.
Also, if you use social media as your Facebook page, it's like as commissioner or mayor, the email contact should be your city email. It should not be a personal email, even if you've used that Facebook page for your campaign and it used to be your campaign email.
Right.
And this is something that there's still no clarification on. Should you be using a current elected official page as a campaign page as well? Again, that gets back into that personal ethics. But that's a whole different thing. Everything, just send it to your city email account. Your taxes pay for the servers.
I think it's you should not use your a commission page, especially if you're currently in office. I think when you reapply to be reelected, you have to use your own personal email account and other information. You can't use your city stuff that you're tied to when you looking to be
Correct.
reelected. And so
Right, and so,
everything should be on your personal side of the house.
right, and that flips, correct, you cannot have political things go through public stuff. But then there's the flip side that are you using the same page? So you have to make sure that once this page is a campaign page and no longer an elected page, how you should be sending any of the information that you're getting through there, that city business for things that you're going to be voting on over to your city email address. Once you're reelected, you should be switching the contact email to your city email.
Right. One thing I don't do, I don't conduct city business on my social media or different things of that nature. I don't answer questions. I don't do any of that on the platform. If I do, I'll forward everything over
Very
to
good.
my city email or the city manager.
Thank you. Okay. All right. And then this one is it for Sunshine. And are there any other questions? Sunshine ethics?
Yes,
social
I have a
media?
I have a question.
Yes.
And it's more so dedicated to and I should have asked the question earlier, but it somewhat ties in. Is there any level of confidentiality between commissioners? Well, not between commissioners, between staff, and what commissioners are able to get from staff with regards to anything dealing with anything that they may have going on, conversations or any other dealings?
Whenever you are an elected, so any emails and things like that, that's all public record when you have an elected official. Even if it's staff, if there are certain documents that staff are doing, let's say you're rewriting your LDC and you want to know, there's somebody from the public that they can request all the current drafts of it. They have to pay for it, with the staff time that they need to uncover that. But this is all public records that the public has a right to know, because they've paid for the paper, they pay for the staff time, they're paying for it, and they have a right to be able to acquire that information. With regard to confidentiality between an elected person and staff, assume that there is none, unless it's the police chief and there's a personal thing going on at home, and it's a legal piece. It's not a policy thing, but it's a legal thing with the police chief. That's a different story if you have to.
But but the request should be formally done as a public records request if they're requesting information, correct?
Yes, and you could, you can, if you are requesting information, you can ask the city manager, because the city manager is going to know that you're requesting information, because every department head will tell the city manager that you're requesting certain information. Again, if you have multiple commissioners requesting the same type of information, this is a flag to the city manager that more work needs to be done in this area. We might need to do a workshop. We might need to send out an email re-explaining things, do a video. But always think of the city manager as the hub,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
the communication hub. So everything goes through the city manager, regardless of how you are engaging city staff. The city manager should be knowing you are engaging the city staff in those departments and what the content of that was.
Thank you.
I have a question. So my question is, in our environment, what we're currently doing is all department heads routinely, anytime a commissioner interact with them, routinely, they let me know. They also, if it is enough where they think that I need to be more aware, they'll even put it in writing.
Yep.
So that even we'll discuss it at department head or whatever. So are we moving in the correct direction? Because that is our mode of operation. Even with city clerk, I've asked them to know if commissioners are interacting with you, please let me know, because I'm held accountable.
Right.
And that's the part that they did not clearly understand. However, they do now. And I just wanted to make sure that my understanding is correct.
It is.
Okay.
And so internal, like your internal employee, and guidance for the directors, that should be part of that. Whenever an elected official or an appointed official, don't forget them appointed, whenever they're contacting staff, that information should be relayed back to the city manager. If you are emailing something out to them, it should be CC'd to the city manager. If you are replying via email to to a staff member, that staff member should be CCing the city manager on the reply. So yes, again, the city manager needs to know all of these things that are going on because the city is a complex organization and you can't have one department going off the rails, or what they think it's fine, but like there's just a lot of turmoil going on. And when you evaluate the city manager, you are evaluating that city manager on the quality of services that the city is producing. So you have to let the city manager produce quality services.
And that's basically how I've always conducted my operation as it relates to dealing with staff. I never deal with staff directly,
Mhm.
asking them to do any work for me unless I go through the city manager. And I'll if I did engage with a staff person, to see that they're CC, the city manager is CC. So
Right, and that's-
we've already had a communication prior to, so.
Yeah, and that's how you want to be able to do that. So there are some cities where the city manager will say, oh, if you have a basic question, contact the department head, just reach out, never go below the department head, because then it's really awkward for the staff.
Right.
Because they're dealing with an elected official and that's something that they are not used to doing. So you never go lower than the department head when dealing with staff.
Right.
So if you have to ask questions or a clarifying question, still CC the city manager just so they know what's going on.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner Jones?
Jones,
Oh.
I didn't ask a question, but I do
Oh.
have one.
See, I knew it. I could feel it.
Yep. So when a subordinate employee contacts you, being a commissioner, and it's about the city manager,
Mhm.
how should that be handled?
Great question. Remember, the city manager is your employee. So if there is a staff member that's having an issue with the city manager, you as the boss should sit down with the city manager and say, I've received this complaint. Can you explain to me what happened or that? Because your job is not only to set direction, you got to it's hard to be a city commissioner. So your job is not only setting the policy for the city and listening to the people and trying to interact with all this intergovernmental stuff, it is also being a good employer to the city manager. And if the city manager is having, if staff are having problems with the city manager, first, depending on what the issue is it an HR issue? Because, if it's an HR issue, they should probably go to the HR department. The city manager tends not to be as interactive with frontline staff. They mainly are if you think about the org chart, they mainly engage with the directors, maybe those right underneath the directors, but anybody under that, it's the job of the directors and their assistants to work with those staff members. But if somebody is coming to you that they have an issue, let's say it's a director, is it an HR issue? Is it a legal issue? Should they be seeking counsel from the city attorney? So there's sometimes it's both. Sometimes or it can be one or another. Now, if it's a department director coming saying, I am tired of the city manager talking down to me at every department in front of the department head meeting every week, then you can talk to the city manager saying, I'm hearing that there's some tension in the city department meetings. What's going on? Are you feeling the tension? Like, how do you approach them? How do you do you have an agenda? Do you give everybody fair time? So ask those questions. Don't be confrontational. Don't, I would highly advise against saying you are horrible. You don't know what you're doing because you are in the room and you're really relying on one person's perception. City manager could have had a bad day that day. Had a lot on the mind.
Right.
Now, if staff are coming to you, like lower level staff, again, put yourself in their shoes. Do they understand the bigger picture? of what they're being asked to do. Remember, so it might be a complex policy that's being implemented, but they are one small piece. They just don't agree with it because they don't know that all these other pieces are being done elsewhere. So at that level, that's where you come to the city manager saying, you might want to speak to this department head and have them bring their staff together so they can see how they all fit in to this larger puzzle.
Yeah, so complex problem.
Yes.
So if you, and you probably dealt with it in the past, you have a subordinate that have issues. I won't say, I mean, whether big or small, sometimes when you're listening to employees, they, if something may be small to us, but it's big to them.
Mhm.
So, and when they're sometimes just don't know what to do. So they have went to their supervisor, let's say the director, met with the director and the city manager, and no resolve to their satisfaction, and they escalated. They do have the right to escalate that. Is that right or not?
You have a union, so they should be engaging their union
No,
representative.
no, we don't have a union.
Oh,
We
do you
have-
weren't recertified?
No, no. Police and fire have a union.
Right,
Oh,
we
so-
have a grievance process.
Okay, so
So-
they'd have to follow the grievance process?
So it's not. It's and that's one of the things. See, I get what you're saying. If you let me complete it. So the HR. So here it is that the wits end don't know what to do, and they share it. They just happen to share it. Small community, people know you. You're the elected official, so it happens to come to you. Not that you asked for it, but it came to you. So we have one person that answers to us. I wouldn't go to the HR. I wouldn't go to the director. However, I expect for the city manager to have some resolve or to go back and to look at this thing and then get back with me as a city manager. I mean, city commissioner on what went on. There's
Yes.
nothing wrong with that because we supervise the city manager and oversee all others as far as their well-being in the organization. Is that right or is it not?
No, that's right. So if you get some kind of a complaint and you let the city manager know, the city manager should find out what's going on, get the complaint resolved, and then if you remember to ask about it, then report back to you about it.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. Now, there are things that might be, like if you're talking about health issues, there's a HIPAA protection. So that there are certain things that the city manager shouldn't be going to detail with you, but she can say, yes, this was resolved through insurance or whatever it was.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that direction, when it's unsolicited and it's brought to your attention, yeah, sitting back and not saying anything about it just don't really sit well. But we try. I think we all work well with our city manager and legal. And speaking of it, being a weak mayoral system, and we talk about direct reports, that is something that it is also a challenge at times with legal, because we have things that as a commission that legal protects all employees, meaning commission on down.
Mhm.
So, and stop us from going into litigation. So there are times that I feel that we should be able to go to legal without involving the city manager on some things. It may be a concern about ourselves personally and the responsibility, or a gray area that we have questions about. So maybe that direct line of um, responsibility and who they answer to may have to change in the future.
You'd have to relook, I don't recall in your charter.
Yeah.
All these answers are in your charter. If these, are you hired by city council?
Yeah, so we are one of those unusual ones where I report to the city manager, not to the city
Okay.
commissioners. So it has definitely posed some problems. We're under charter review committee right now, and that
Okay,
is
good.
one of the suggested changes.
Yeah, so it is being looked at. And this is something that I personally prefer commissioner or council hiring the city manager and the city attorney. So the city attorney does not answer to the city manager. Because it kind of provides a little balance for you. Regardless of how the city attorney is selected, you want to always remember that the city attorney is never your personal attorney. But now I also want to, you mentioned that you're going through a charter review, which is a great thing. And so always remember that anything that you decide that needs to be changed in the charter, like making the mayor not just men, the mayor in your charter is referred to as he.
Yes.
So, as we used to joke around with our mayor, Mr. Mayor. Got that changed this past year. She finally got to be Madam Mayor.
Right.
So these things that you're identifying in the charter, you probably don't want to put if there's a lot of changes, you don't want to put them all on the ballot at once. Pick the most important ones to get out. And you want to inform the voters why this is important. So this way they support it, because any charter changes has to go to a vote of the
Mhm.
people.
So education is
Yeah,
part.
education is very important because people will some will just vote yes, some will vote no. They'll see city attorney like, oh no, we're gonna get sued. You know, you want to make sure that you control that message. You control the message of the changes that are going into the charter,
And
or
just-
that you're being asked into the charter.
Okay, and just to clarify, we are not a weak mayor form of government because I have a vote.
Correct.
Commissioner.
Yeah, it's a
We-
commission. It's a commission manager form of government.
And to the city manager does have discretion to change the organization as they see fit to benefit the city as well. So
Correct.
you don't necessarily have to go to a charter for a change. Would that be correct?
No, it depends on what the change is. If you're changing something in the charter, it has to go to the charter. And it has to go to a vote of the people. Now, if it's reorganizing the departments in the city, and how those boxes move around, that can be done by the city manager.
Right.
Usually, like, they'll explain to you why they want to do that, but that can be done by the city manager.
Right.
The, how you currently have it is, so what the city manager cannot do is say that the city attorney no longer answers to me, they will now answer to the commission.
Right.
Because that is in the charter that the city attorney answers to the city manager.
Okay, it's in the structure.
Are we, any further questions for those in Zoom? Okay, thank you. We can go on.
Okay, so roles and responsibilities, we've been touching on this. This is the one I said I want to do the deep dive. We've been diving.
Oh, and the other thing, I think before, yeah, I think that is correct, because I was just thinking we always had a contracted
Mhm.
attorney. Now we have a hired on
Attorney
Right.
and staff.
attorney
Yeah.
as staff. So I guess that would still be the same
Mhm.
situation.
Correct, because it's stated in the charter.
Yep.
Like the US Constitution.
Yep.
State Constitution, charters. All right, so roles and responsibilities. In this section, we're going to cover your responsibilities, the city manager's responsibility, and then oversight. So here is the annual evaluation of the city manager and possibly a city attorney if the charter is changed, and that is now a charter commission, a charter role. So first, what do you all do? You set direction, and that is hard. You've got a lot of people talking to you and asking you to go in different directions, and you've got to figure out long-term what is best for the city of Palatka. So if you think about the city as a corporation in Florida, that's what they are. You are the shareholders and the city manager is the CEO. You set the directions, the city manager needs to implement. So you set the direction, you set the ordinances, you decide what changes may or may not get into the charter. Because before the people vote on it, you have to vote to put it on the ballot to let them vote on it. So there is this process, but you have that big picture. Policies that you're passing, you want to make sure it's for the best for the public good, for public health, and for public safety. Assess needed structural updates and changes. This, I'm talking about the charter. So if you look at that charter and you go, some things might not, we really should revisit this. So I did not see where you have to, like, every 8 years, 5 years, so that's something we did that about 4 years ago in Jack's Beach. So we did a full charter review, and it was a lot of work. So look at the structural changes and updates, and you don't have, so one of the suggestions I would say in the city charter, say that we will revisit the city charter every like 7 years. You want it to be on off cycles. But you don't have to wait for that to change the charter. If you see that something should be adjusted or changed, you can move it before the time period that it's in the charter to review it. So when you're looking at what to put in a charter, you don't want to put things in a charter that are that can change, but it's more of something that you want that's can be flexible. That should be in policies and ordinances, internal policies and ordinances. When you're looking at structure though, or something that the community is passionate about, that rises to the level of going into the charter. So what you'll see on in Northeast Florida, all the beaches communities, they have a height limit of 35 feet in their charter. And a lot of them have it in their charters. So regardless of who gets elected to the council or the commission, they can't change that. It has to go to a vote of the people.
Right.
So like that means it rises to the charter level. You don't want to put things in the charter like there will always be 2 stop signs on First Street. Things like that. So you want to make sure that it's structural. Assess needed policy updates and changes. So when we say policy updates and changes, you're going to really rely on the city manager on this. So some of this can be policies that, let me think about, everybody. So speeding in neighborhoods. Everybody complains about speeding in neighborhoods. And you're like, all right, well, what's our policy on speed bumps, speed humps? Let's say you have a policy that says, well, we don't do them, we don't do them. Maybe over time, that policy might want to be adjusted to say that during these instances, this is something we may want to look at for the health and safety of the people who live in this community. When you're looking at internal policies, like the procurement policy, extremely important. But now that is going to fall on staff. But you need to approve, like there's a lot of stuff in there. So if you're looking at how contracts are put out, who decides the software that's purchased and all, that's all done through procurement. And so if the procurement needs to be updated, you want to make sure that if you're hearing complaints from people, you let the city manager know, and she will know, all right, this is an area that we should look at. Ensure fiscal responsibility, present and future. So this is where we get back into that intergovernmental relations thing. Nobody likes their millage rate raised, right? So you can't raise the millage rate, but we also have a cap in Florida that you cannot increase you can't increase it by more than 3% annually. If costs outpace that 3%, which might have happened in the last couple of years, you are really going to be in a weird situation where you're going to have to sell it to the people that you might need to do a millage increase. Or if you're not going to do it, you're like, everybody's like, no. All right, then what are we going to cut? Because if you don't have the money to pay for it, you're going to have to cut something. What would you like to pull back on? Do you want less police officers? Do you want to clean the parks less often? So, and these are policy decisions that need to be made. So you want to make sure that you are fiscally responsible with their taxpayer dollars. The state does put some limitations on you. You're not allowed to raise your own taxes. So we have a lot of in-home rule. Because you're a chartered city, you have a lot of, you can do anything that the state says you can't do, except for fiscal policy. The state controls the fiscal policy. So you want to make sure that you understand how the money is flowing, where it's being used, what goes to the county. Are you getting your county services that you are paying for? That's something that I know a lot of city-county relationships are dealing with. So that's why you want to have that good relationship with the county tax collector and appraiser and whomever is the CFO for the county, because you want to know, all right, so we're paying this percentage to the county. Where does that money go? Can you just like show me where it goes for animal control, where it goes for roads, where it goes for the prisons and all that stuff? And they should be able to relatively easily track that for you. Fiscal response, and it's going to be difficult because again, nobody's going to want their Everybody wants to get more services and pay less taxes or keep it the same. And they see it as very, very easy because they'll just get rid of the services that they don't use. The problem is somebody is using those services and they're saying the same thing. So you got to be the rational headed one.
So most of this, if I may, is occurring pretty much during that budgeting process. You know, the 3 months or so
Mhm.
that we invest our time and energy in that. That's when we're doing pretty much what you're saying.
Right, and different cities have different timelines, but it generally is on the administrative side. Budgeting is all year round. You might get a month off in November. Then in December, your department heads are looking at what they're going to need for this upcoming year, what the priorities are. And then they've got to put their budgets in and who are they going to need to hire more individuals and what's going to be the cost of the budget. And eventually, so all the department heads give the wish list to the city manager, and the city manager then takes the scissors and cuts it all a piece. And then she has these little happy people all holding hands, and nobody gets everything they want, but everybody gets what they need. Yeah, I think that's the easiest way that I can put it. And most importantly, you hire and oversee the city manager. City manager should have annual evaluations. And so what I pushed for when I was on council in Jack's Beach, because we didn't have city manager evaluations for a long time, was that, yeah, we have to have evaluations of the city manager, but it can't just be one way, like the perspective of the electeds to the city manager, because the city manager is hands-on with the department heads. So what we agreed to in Jack's Beach is there's two different groups that evaluate the city manager, the department heads and the commission up over there, the council. And so this way you're getting a better view, because they could just be making you really, really happy, saying everything that you want to hear, and they might be a horrible person to the staff.
Right. And two, also, I mean, like, we used to do the 360-degree reviews where you evaluate yourself, then you have some peers evaluate you, and then you also have your superior evaluation. And so you got a 360-degree evaluation. But yeah, like you say, I just added just one additional component in there. You evaluate yourself to kind of understand and see, okay, this is the way I think I'm performing, as opposed to my peers or whoever else in the department head or the city manager or whatever.
Yeah, generally speaking, how I've seen the city manager evaluations go is that the city manager does write up what they've accomplished. And so that would be like the self-evaluation part.
Right.
And that is presented in
Correct.
addition to everybody else's stuff for the commission to decide hire, fire, if they're hired, what percentage raise, if
Right.
any. Because now you go back to the fiscal piece.
Right. And you got to have that guide. I mean, you got to
Yeah.
have that guide where you got your priorities, your mission, vision, and strategy. And so we just implemented that
Okay, so you have a
last year.
strategic
So
plan.
we just got to focus
Okay.
on that and get those things
Excellent.
before everybody.
You guys are in a good space. You're in good space.
First time ever.
Yeah, well, I dealt with this in Jack's Beach when I was on council. I'm like, all right, I have some goals. We have to look at the LDC. I want a vision, a mission, a strategic plan, and an implementation plan. We got all of those. And then I worked with the city manager with the approval of council on the implementation plan. So how he developed this implementation plan, like how do you implement the strategic plan?
Right.
Because that's another thing that I do on the side hustle.
All right.
It's a side hustle. So those are your responsibilities. Again, oversight of the city manager. The city manager is supposed to have control and oversight of the city staff to make sure everything is done to your satisfaction and beyond.
Right.
Next. So what does the manager got to do? They're the implementer and the resource provider. So you might want to know, why can't we do this? Well, she is the expert in city management. She's also the expert in the CFO. So she can tell you. The city manager functions as the CEO of the organization, manages the organization, oversees all the staff. Does not mean that her span of control is she's interacting with every staff member. She should know all the staff members and they know her, but the direct control would go to the department head, then to the assistants, and then to the managers. And there can Right, there's a chain of command. So, and that's a piece of accountability. So if something goes wrong, you know where it, why, what area it went wrong in, which again is a reason why you don't want to engage staff, because at that point, accountability wise, the city manager now can't identify where the problem happened. But he or she will then be held accountable for it. So another thing is that you provide, the city manager will provide information to the elected officials, and the information that is provided should be all the information that you need to make the best decision that you can. It's not one-sided, it's not another-sided, it's information for you to make a good decision. So when you get staff reports, ask questions, because you want to be fiscally responsible. So ask questions. If you don't understand something, don't feel like, oh no, everybody else is going to know. They don't. But the experts will. So what the department heads will be here, the city manager will be here, the city attorney will be here to answer the questions, because you want to make sure that you clearly understand what it is that you are being asked to vote on or spend money on, or a policy. So let's say you're looking at the speed bumps, the speed humps, you're looking at that, and you're like, oh yeah, we definitely need to slow down the traffic because they're driving like crazy around here. And then you would ask the Public Works, oh, it's not that much more asphalt. We can do that and paint some lines on it. Yeah, that's good. The police chief comes up and goes, well, there might be some issues. So now you have to balance the two. And again, that's a policy role, but they are there to be experts to provide you with information. And then helps elected officials develop policies. So you all ran for office because you have some issues, not you have issues. There are issues that you have seen in the community. I've run for office too, so I can say that we have issues. But no, you have seen issues in the community that you want to have resolved. And the city manager will, not only if he or she does not know how to approach that, she has an excellent network. The city managers all network with each other. And they go through FCCMA, and you are not only looking at this city manager's experience, you are getting the experience from city managers and the retired city managers from throughout the state. And I can guarantee you that someone has dealt with this or dealt with a similar issue. And so the city manager's job is to research that and provide you all of the information she was able to find. And this way you now have options on what direction do you want the policy to go in to handle this particular problem. So that is a city manager role. So you don't have to do all the homework. I mean, you can do a little bit just to kind of get a framework, but when you don't have to email every city manager throughout Florida saying, have you had a problem with speed humps and speeding in neighborhoods? You have a city manager who can do that. Implements policies and priorities. So every year, now that you have a strategic plan, yay you have priorities. And so every year you have to figure out what your priorities are, and those there needs to be some things that rise above the others, or else there's no priorities. So the city manager is going to implement those priorities so that those are going to rise to the top. So if there are other things that you want, you can't keep asking the city manager, like, I want all of it done tomorrow. No, you have to prioritize. If you want all of this stuff done within a short time frame, do you really want to hire the staff I need to be able to accomplish that? This is where you have to do the balance. You have X amount of staff, you have X amount of dollars, and you have a whole bunch of things you could want to have done. You need to balance it all out. And the city manager and the CFO, who happen to be the same person right now, will help you through that process. Ensure laws and procedures are followed. So this is the city manager and the city clerk, making sure that your meetings are noticed, that they're ADA accessible, that the minutes are there, your website is ADA compliant. You are following all the legal laws and policies that the state is mandating that you follow. And then hires and fires staff. You ever want to hear great stories, or not great stories, weird stories that you're like, people really do that? Ask city managers, what are some of the weird things that you've had to deal with as a city manager? Because the one thing about being a city manager is no day is ever the same as the last. And you will get some wacky situations that you got to deal with. You're going, what were you thinking? you smile, you move through it, and then you share it with your little city manager network people. But they got stories. People, former city managers have write books about their weird stories. Some of them are great. I love them. But anyways, they're great stories. If you want an exciting career, go into city management. There's a reason why. I like that. I'm kind of anyways. Next. All right. So oversight, public accountability. This is back when we go into the evaluation. So all communication from council to staff goes through the city manager, and the staff can reply to you, but the city manager would be CC. The city manager acts as a communication and request hub. So if you are requesting something, is it in the priorities? Is it something that's already getting done? It goes to the city manager. When a citizen contacts you about a pothole, we're just going to assume it's a city street because we won't even get into the county road and all those other ones. So let's just assume it's a city street, something that you can do. If you contact the public works director, hey, that road's got a pothole. Everybody else has contacted them. Go through the city manager. So this public works director only gets one pothole phone call. Commission oversees the city manager. Again, this is where you have the evaluations, do them annually and be honest and forthright. Also remember, these evaluations are done in public. This is also a public record. So just always keep that in mind.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So like, if there's something urgent going on
Mhm.
and it's easier in this particular instance to effect what needs to be completed for the commissioners to interact directly, for instance, with police chief, fire chief,
Mhm.
public works director. Sometimes in those instances, I just say to those three categories, hey, no, it's good. Keep up with the
Right.
commissioner, just keep me informed.
Yeah, and
That's cool.
as long as it goes through you, because you run the organization.
Yeah, I know. I got you.
So yeah, as long as
we
it goes
are
through you,
doing
and
it
it's
that
clear
way.
that these are the parameters right
Right.
now,
But
that
the-
you could just
Mhm.
reach right out to the police
Right,
chief or
'cause-
the fire chief.
And there are times when I move backward
Mhm.
and I say, no, I want you to stay with them. Just keep me informed.
Yeah,
Like that.
CC,
And that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
yes.
So while we're on the city manager evaluations, um, we're in the process of getting ready to go through and do interviews for hiring new city managers. It has not been done in terms of the complete commission
Mhm.
doing evaluations. So what would your recommendation be as it relates to that in terms of bringing somebody in day one, whether it's the current interim who would be chosen or the new individual who would be chosen to fill that role? Day one, to have something to provide to that individual for direction in terms of what they need to be able to achieve with sitting down with them, giving with the well, you're going to work with the city manager to say, okay, well, hey, here's what we would like for you to do. Okay, how does this fit within your schedule? Do you think you can, so it has to be
Right.
agreed upon both ways. And so what's your recommendation on something along those lines?
It should be in their contract that they will be evaluated on X date every year by the commission. Think about, when you're thinking about the date, also think about elections, when you're elected, because if you are a city manager and you're getting evaluated 2 months or a month after an election, and you have 3 new people on the commission, 3 people have never worked with you, how are they
Right.
going to really evaluate you? So
Right.
keep that in mind as well when you're looking at the time frame. As for an evaluation form, there are different forms from FCCMA. They have just template forms, so you can pull that and then you can workshop it as a commission. Say which ones do you think should be the priority here when a new city manager or the interim city manager is hired as city manager? Go through what you've decided is the best thing. You can also, the HR department is also going to be involved in this.
Right.
So they should be included in that conversation.
So I think you're asking about setting those objectives
Yes.
and goals up front so the person knows what the expectations are and can be evaluated on those. And another follow-up question, when you do have a new city manager, and they're in a probationary period, do you do an evaluation assessment before the end of that so they kind of know where they stand or where they need to improve?
Yes, you do. If for
If it's
no
in the
other,
contract.
right. And so it's like a smaller evaluation.
Right, correct.
But it's to get off of probation. So
Yes.
you do the evaluation there. And when you're doing an evaluation, it's areas that can be improved on. And then any manager should always be asking, what can I do to help you meet these objectives?
Mhm.
I have a question. In the evaluation of the city manager, is there any possible way, I know the answer, but I'm looking for backup here. Is there any possible way to do that in private? A lot of members of the public were appalled that such a personal employment issue was vetted in the public forum. Is there a way to do that behind closed doors?
No.
That's what I
but
thought, that's what I
so-
thought too, but.
But so now if there are some like issues, for lack of a better term, do those one-on-one with the city manager. Because remember, when the public sees a lot of turmoil in administration, that makes them at unease. And so you want to make sure that they feel confident in their government. So there might be some internal kerfuffling going on, but you don't want that to fall out into the public arena.
So the one-on-one approach in that case.
Right. And then the scores, which are going to be made public and who said and who rated them at what, if they're low, just say, I think that, I've spoken personally with this individual. And so but I would like to see an improvement for the following year.
Okay, thank you.
3 minutes. Oh, okay. So next.
30 minutes at the most.
Well, what do you feel?
It's for 5:20 and I still have to get
It's
ready.
5:20?
It's
Yeah.
5:20 now.
So
I still have to
maybe
get ready for
15?
that,
Go 15?
probably 10-15 minutes, yeah.
So the
Okay.
next is 15.
Okay.
Maybe we still have to roll over for the.
I got you.
commission.
So the
Okay.
next
All right, cool. Next, I can get through. This is the one I wanted to go into deeply. So meetings, we will cover the conduct of a meeting, the types of meetings, votes in a meeting, and then budget. So I'll do these. I can get this done at 15.
You're
I'm
good.
quick. All right, so next, conducting the meeting. You want to decide upfront early on with any new council, with any new commission, what are going to be the procedures of the meeting? How is it going to be conducted? So most of them are done by Robert's Rules of Order. And, but to what extent? So Robert's Rules, if you know it really well, actually at some instances go against the Sunshine Law. So you can't actually follow Robert's Rules completely. So you're going to have some kind of an adjustment to it. But I would also say that how the parliamentary procedures for your meetings should be documented and done as a policy. You could do a legislative policy to make sure that any new person or citizen wants to know how this meetings are run and how can I have an input. They see the procedure right there. Noticed and agenda, again, these fall back onto specifically the city clerk, that people have to know in advance that there is going to be a meeting, what the body is and what they're going to be talking about. You are not legally stuck to the agenda. There are some adjustments that you can pull things off an agenda. When you put something on, you want to make sure it's an emergency because you don't want the public saying, well, you're just trying to slide this in the back door. I know there's a lot of shenanigans going on. I just like the
Question,
word
can-
shenanigans.
Can you also do like a new business?
New businesses, whatever the city manager will have what the new business is. And these are things do you have workshops?
No.
Oh, yeah,
What-
but like for city business.
We
So
don't.
one of the things that could help is if the commission gets together and holds workshops, maybe once a month.
Yeah.
So you can have a more informal conversation about how is that agenda going to be set for the next month's meetings? And that way it's noticed, it's public. The public tends not to have input at those meetings, but you can speak more freely than you can at a commission meeting.
Right, and that's what's been pushed for quite some time in terms of like when you're having those, even the pre-agenda meetings where we're not in with the department heads for the most part.
Mhm.
And then if we can't go to meet with them one-on-one or whatever without having communicate that through the city manager. So when things come up, we need to be able to get that information firsthand to be so that everybody know the same information at the same time.
Yeah, I strongly recommend workshops. In those workshops, the items on that workshop should be framed around what your priorities are and what you're
Yes.
trying to move forward.
Right.
And so this way you are all getting the same information from the department heads together. And again, you can talk freely
Right.
between each other and you're not as regimented.
Thank you.
Minutes, there needs to be minutes of all meetings. Make sure you read those minutes. Don't just approve them, because once they're approved,
Mhm.
they are the legal documented minutes of that meeting. So if Karen feels like, I didn't like that vote, I'm going to switch it. You approve those minutes, you know, not that you would do that. But like that is an extreme example. That would never happen. But because it is now the official record
Right.
of the meeting, it's the official record.
I gotta
So
make
read 'em.
sure, before the night's meeting, I gotta look back at the minutes
Yes.
again.
Yes, exactly. And then public records, the public can make any kind of a public records request. They're not charged for the records, but they are charged for staff time to be able to gather those records. Or paper printed on. So everything that you say at meetings becomes a public record. What you say in meetings can be used in court. Again, it is a public record. This is specifically next. This is really important when we get into quasi judicial meetings. This is where you're going to have citizens freaking out about something, a new development in their neighborhood, and you're sweating. You're like, I'm getting voted on next week, and that sweat is coming. And they're saying, I'm not voting for anybody who votes for this. But if there is no competent and substantial evidence as to why you should vote it down, you have to vote for it. So my suggestion there, look for competent and substantial evidence. So what happens is the judge looks at the minutes in the public record and looks at why it was voted down. And if no one is stating exactly what in the code, what provision you are referring to, this is the reason I voted it down, and I took this piece of competent and substantial evidence as my reason to apply this to vote it down. If that connection's not made, the judge is going to say you caved into the public will, and you've paid for the court fees for you and the person who sued the city for not being able to do it. Always tie it back. Every public record's critical. Did you?
Well, the quasi judicial.
Yes.
Is that a legislative meeting?
I think I have that one as the next slide. So,
Oh,
okay, hold the questions on quasi judicial till I get to
Yeah,
this
go
one.
ahead.
Every meeting of the commission and bodies all follow open meeting laws, noticed, agenda, minutes. Types, you have your legislative meetings. That's the meeting that you're going to have immediately following this meeting, where you do
Okay.
business. You vote on stuff, you pass stuff, you do ordinances and resolutions. Special legislative meetings, sometimes you have to hold a special meeting, something that's coming up really quickly. You often see these during budget season, where you have to hold a special meeting so you can get it done before the October 1st deadline. Non-legislative meetings, that's what this is. So this is a workshop. Also public hearings. Let's say that the people who are mad about something being developed, you know that this is going to be an issue. You want to get out in front of it, hold a public workshop where people can come and speak freely to you. You're not voting, but they can pour their hearts out to you because you care about how they are loving or not loving their neighborhoods. And then organizational meetings. This would be one like at the beginning of when a new commission comes together after an election. You want to have an organizational meeting where you decide on those parliamentary procedures and how are you going to be conducting business for the public good.
Question on the public hearing example would be, if you have more than one commissioner that may be at the meeting and the people, you have the community coming out, voicing their opinion on whatever may be coming before a vote. Now, you shouldn't take a position on certain things, like a commissioner should not say how they support or don't support something during that particular meeting. I mean, would you?
Okay, so this is still subject to sunshine.
Right,
You can, unless it is land use. You cannot have a position on land use,
Okay.
quasi judicial stuff, because the evidence hasn't been presented to you.
Okay. I just wanted to put this out there because,
It's always better to just kind of leave it like, thank you very much for this input. I'll take this into consideration.
right,
But if you get into the land use, quasi judicial stuff, because it is, the body is acting as a judge at that point, the judge's decision can only be made on the evidence presented at
Okay.
the trial or at the hearing.
right, okay. Thank you, appreciate it.
Next. Decision-making, city man, like this, so this is a city manager business. These are like contracts you're going to vote on, all the regular, the policies and things that you need to pass, you know, a new contract, pieces like that, city manager businesses, ordinances. These are the new laws you're going to have that you're passing for your community. This could be changes to the code. It could be, you know, whatever the ordinance is, which are different than resolutions. Resolutions mean that you all come together and you agree on, let's say it's the Florida League of Cities. They have their legislative agenda for the legislative action days, and you do a resolution to accept that. You put that forward, and that's what so it's like, we support this. It does not have the weight of an ordinance. And so when you're looking at ordinances, they are laws, but they are not criminal laws. They're like civil. So you have criminal and civil. So this is not the law and order law. Again, everything that is said in a public meeting is part of the public record and it can be used in court. So let's go back to that quasi judicial meeting. This is rezoning, planning commission, it's all quasi judicial. You need competent and substantial evidence. I strongly recommend that you spend time with your city attorney or somebody who specializes in land use to go through what it is that you should be looking for when you are making these quasi judicial decisions. And like some places they get people who testify, you know, before you get sworn in. You know, you are acting as a judge. Next. See? Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, missed one. Fiscal responsibility, budgets. And I'm going to do a very high level piece on budgets. So you have an annual budget. This is your operating budget. It's your fiscal year FY. Right now we are in 24-25. You're starting the process for 25-26. This is the one that's due every October 1st. In that annual budget, you're going to have a capital budget. That capital budget is a 5-year out for big things that are going to cost money over the course of 5 years. So you start putting money away a little bit each year. So pay attention to your capital budget. And then you have enterprise funds. So your airport would be an enterprise fund. Your gas would be an enterprise fund. Do you have a golf course? Enterprise fund. Enterprise funds are their own little, but they're their own little businesses and they should be paying for themselves. So any of the excess in the enterprise fund, so once all of the expenses of the business that it's part of are covered, it can put money back into the general fund, as long as the state of Florida still allows that. Currently they do, but it was up last year about electric. We have our own electric thing, and I'm like, uh-oh. So again, you want to really pay attention. You're into governmental relations. You want to know what's going on in Tallahassee. Over the last many years, several years, the state has been encroaching more and more on home rule. And so remember that when you're looking at this and you're being fiscally responsible with the people's tax dollars, but you still need the city to do a whole bunch of stuff that costs money, and it costs more money now than it did 5 years ago. You have a millage rate and you're relatively stuck at that. So 3% until that property is sold, then it can go back up to what it's currently valued at. But until it's sold, it's stuck at that 3%. So you're always going to have that cap. Rollback rate. Rollback rate means that the city in year 2 will only bring in the same amount of money as it did the previous year in year 1, regardless of what the millage rate is. No city really does that because I mean, honestly, do you spend the same exact amount of money from one year to the next? No. So what you're going to be hit with every year as an elected official is a trim notice. And it looks like to the public, you're raising their taxes. Because technically you kind of are, but you're not raising the millage rate.
Right.
They just have to pay more in taxes because of that.
Valuation.
The value went up. It's very hard for the general public to understand, and it's kind of like a trickery. But just be prepared for it. So you don't raise the millage rate. You're like, oh yeah, keeping it holding steady. Trim rate comes out, your phone will ring, your emails will blow up. Next. And then questions recap. Talked about the structure, sunshine laws, ethics, conflict of interest, the roles and responsibility. You all set the policy direction, let the city manager run the city. And then you oversee, if things are happening in the city that you don't like, you speak to the city manager about it, and have the city manager correct it. And then meetings and decision makings. You guys have a really hard job. Nobody, like, I don't agree with myself all the time. Never mind when you look at the community and they don't agree with things and you are being asked to make decisions that impact their quality of life, their livelihoods, and just their day-to-day being, because local government is the one that impacts people the most. You're never going to make everyone happy, but think of it as what is the best decision that you can make to make sure that you feel comfortable with how you voted and you know that you've helped as many people as you could with that vote. Next.
Questions?
Yes, going back to new commissioners and getting kind of like a agreed upon operating, especially for parliamentary procedures,
Mhm.
because I'm a new commissioner and I am very well versed on parliamentary procedures, and I have come from organizations where it is very strict.
Yes.
And I'm recognizing that in the absence of knowing what the standard agreed upon is for a body, I tend to yield to the strict law of Robert's rule. And so that's kind of a workshop opportunity, I suppose, for us.
Yeah,
Okay.
the
Yeah,
Have that opportunity, so I think it's imperative.
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
to manage about onboarding and getting people up to speed, but that's a key portion that we're on the same
Yeah.
page, I agree.
okay. And part of it is just me explaining myself to my new colleagues.
well, always remember that governing is a team sport. It's not all on you. It's not all on staff. You need to make sure that you have systems in place that help you work together in the best ways that you possibly can while maintaining the public trust.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I tell her thank you?
Up next-
Absolutely. You did an awesome job. You just.
I'd like to tell you thank you very
Very
much.
much.
You're gonna do a magnificent and wonderful job.
The photos are all of Flacca.
I saw
spent
that.
more time on
That's
the photos.
That's a nice personal touch.
Yeah,
I love that.
let's make, and I tried to have the photos match the text as best I could. And,
Excellent job.
So, you all have the printout, so you have my contact information. If
Okay.
questions pop up, I am more than, I'm around.
So-
So yeah, please feel free to reach out.
We just call it a wordsmith kind of thing. You
Right.
did a magnificent and wonderful job, so we'll call it Mac Wonderful.
What? Thank you.
All
I'm
right.
an academic. I get to make up words. I like that. We're keeping that one.
Okay, and remember, this is an arm of Florida League of Services, Senior Advisor.
Oh, I'm not a senior advisor.
Well, you know.
No, that's like
that-
George Forbes.
Yeah.
I'm not
I-
retired yet.
I know, but I did find you that
Yes.
way. Okay, I'm just saying that.
Why, thank you.
All right. There are refreshments for you all.
I move
please.
to adjourn.
Thank you.
And you have food, commissioners, and also Dr. Georgette. We do have sandwiches for you.
Oh, I'm good. I
okay.
gotta head up to IKEA. My husband wants a board that I got from my